Hello, and welcome to the Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward to bringing you amazing content each week that will provide you with a financial education. It will support you in your financial journey, and most of all, help you to find financial freedom. I hope you enjoy this episode. I am your host, Natalie Kime, and today we're going to discuss preparing for later in life / the unknown, because it doesn't always come later in life and it's not always up to us. So what does that mean? Being prepared for things like potentially a disability that could come along. You or a loved one is in an accident, you're injured, something like that creates a disability. Preparing for health issues, being diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, ALS, something that gets diagnosed later in life, and impacts your or their ability to care for themselves. And then also caretaking needs. Caretaking needs such as, depending on what's going on, they may or may not need full-time caretaking or any caretaking. They may need part-time. They may need, in-home physical therapy. They may be able to still live on their own, just depending on the situation. But there is a financial aspect that comes with all of those things. So I know I've touched on different pieces of this slightly recently in some of my shows, and I want to start digging in a little bit deeper. Today, we're going to kind of start at a high level somewhat with some of this stuff, but I do want to start digging in a little bit deeper for two reasons. One, I think this is something that a good majority of us will deal with at some point, either for ourselves or for a loved one, family member, friend, something like that. And also because it's definitely something not talked about or educated on when it comes to finances. There's so much about what I teach and what I work on with my clients that's not truly educated, including budgeting, managing debt pay down, how you get into financial trouble utilizing debt, right? Like it can just creep up on you, or, unexpected other things like the loss of a job or something can cause hardships that require a different focus on debt. There's a lot of things that come into that. And so, life insurance, 401ks, a lot of people know from a general perspective what those things are, but do we really know how they work, right? So I talk about all those kind of things a lot, and I will continue to do so. But I want to focus a lot of my conversations, no matter what I'm talking about, as to how it can impact your plan for later in life, whether that plan is for yourself or a loved one. And I really want to focus a lot of my services moving forward for those that fall into these categories. For the most part, it's usually people in their 40s or 50s, depending on the age of their parents, when they had them maybe, but usually in your 40s or 50s that you're facing, maybe even sometimes in your 60s, if your parents live a good long life. But that's where you really fall into either overseeing caretaking for your parents, becoming a caretaker for your parents, whatever the case may be. And I did a snippet recording of this recently that's going to show up in some of the snapshot views of the radio shows and stuff. And I wanted to just dig in a little bit deeper today. And so I really want to focus on servicing that area of my clientele. I am 51 years old. And so I think by nature, I just know a lot of people, obviously in my same age range, through activities, through life circles, things like that. And so more of that is popping up, and especially my personal experience this last, year, almost 2 years now since we found out my mom had dementia, but especially this last year, um, after having them move them here to live with me so that I can caretake for my parents. So, I really want to focus on supporting that segment of my clientele. I work with anybody and I will continue to share information, and I love all my clients. I just feel that right now I'm being drawn to really speak on the impact and how I can support and help and framework plans for people, even already in caretaking or overseeing caretaking for a loved one, but especially those who may be getting close to the point where they would be. So, that being said, just kind of the recap so far already, real quick, is what does this mean? Facing a disability, health issues, caretaking needs for yourself or someone else. And I say yourself because I do want you to absorb this, not only for like, how do I need to help my mom and dad or my husband, or but what do I really want when this time comes for me? So, how do you get started? Um, so the part of your financial plan that incorporates all of this piece, it should be embedded within your overall financial plan, and the documents and notes and wishes, whatever you have, should all be kept in one place together. So likely the people overseeing your caretaking or that you're caretaking for, um, are going to know what they want. But have you documented it? Have you had them tell you so you can document it on their behalf of what they do and don't want? And look, let's be real honest and attack this elephant in the room first of all. In some cases, our family members, our loved ones, our parents, whoever we're talking about, may not want to be in a nursing home or an adult care facility or something like that. Their wishes may not be to go that direction. However, if you're the person responsible for overseeing their potential care in the future or their care currently, you may not be wired to be a full time caretaker. So, I first want to say it is okay if it is not in your wiring, not in your makeup to be a caretaker, that maybe it fits better for you to have oversight of, a loved one's care, or maybe have multiple siblings and there's somebody who is wired for that, or maybe none of you are wired for that, and but there's one who's maybe more financially minded and one who's more medical care minded, and you can kind of split some of those responsibilities up. So even if your role, because you have multiple siblings, is just a support, I think it's important for you to be plugged in and understand this information, because support is imperative for you to truly understand maybe what a sibling is going through and supporting your parents on an active hands-on basis. um it weighs I can tell you for a fact, it weighs heavily, right? And while they may want the opportunity, they may be grateful for the opportunity, like myself, it also is still hard and it is still heavy at times. And having the support of you is gonna be really important in helping them navigate through that, especially when they first get started. There's so much change. um, and I've mentioned before, it's kind of like bringing home your first baby, right? You spent 9 months reading about becoming a parent, hearing everybody else's advice and all the things. But the reality is, when you truly step into those shoes, when that baby comes out, and you bring it home, you still have to navigate how it's going to work for you and how it's going to work for your baby, because they don't all pop out of the same mold. Same thing on the flip side, when we're approaching end of life or um, health difficulties, things like that require a different level of care. So number one, so important to make sure that your wishes are documented for how you want that managed in the future. That whoever you may care for, or oversee care for, or just support care for. Um, has their wishes documented. The truth is nobody wants to talk about this. I'm in financial services, and once I wish I would have known what I know now 10 or 20 years ago. It would have changed a lot of things for my parents, would have changed the way we set some things up for their um finances. Would have set up some things for um additional long-term care and funds availability. And it would have enabled us to have some hard conversations much earlier on. Um, but that being said, I can't go backwards. I can't change any of that. So I encourage you guys, if you're not already there, don't wait until something happens and then try to figure it out. It's hard enough as it is. And if you're just trying to figure out how to navigate hard conversations, the back and forth and conversations that need to take place with siblings or other family members who may want or not want to care for a loved one, all of those things. If you can identify that now, it's huge. Who's going to do it? Who's going to play what role? And do you all understand the wishes of the person involved? Because when the time comes, they may not be in a position to tell you what their wishes would be. And so then you're just guessing. And it's a whole other layer of guilt if the direction you go um, doesn't work out, right? Maybe it takes you a couple of care facilities to find the right one, or maybe it's a move between siblings' homes until you find the right. I don't know, just whatever, right? There's so many things that can make you second guess every single day when you do know this stuff, let alone when you don't. So, I sat down with my parents about 2.5 years ago. So almost 3 years ago, maybe. So before my brother and I got the official notification that my mom had dementia. We sat down with our mom and dad, and I finally pushed some of these hard conversations, and there were plenty of tears on their parts and on our part. Of course, they don't want to be a burden, but they also don't want to go in a care facility. And, through our conversations that came down to, we told our parents we'd do everything we could for as long as we could to avoid that. But we were also very honest that there may come a time the care they need is greater than what we can provide, even with in-home nursing or something like that. And so, we were smart. I feel like, in my opinion, to not promise more than we could provide. And that we would do our very best. And also your very best may mean, you have every intention to caretake. And when you start, you realize um it's not the right answer for you or them or whatever. I just want you all to know that journey and those decisions are very, very personal to those involved. And it's okay. It's okay if you choose to do it. It's okay if you choose not to do it. And it's okay if you choose to land somewhere in between. Um, and so don't beat yourself up. Don't allow other people to beat you up in the process. You're really just doing the best you can. And that's why I say, understanding your wishes, their wishes, and having conversations about, like, if what you think you can provide is different than their desires, like, you've got to have that conversation and explain it to them, and then navigate through conversations of, where is maybe a middle ground, or what kind of work can we do now to look at what's available out there for you in retirement communities, as a transitionary point, or making sure you're in a home that has as many safety measures as possible as you age, like it's one story with no stairs, because stairs become a big issue the older people get. Are there ways you can plan for where they're living that helps in most cases to allow them to live independently for as long as possible. So know those things, document those things, and it's important to have that information as well as the financial information we're going to get to here shortly, not only documented but all kept in one place. Because what if you have every intention to caregive and something, God forbid, happens to you, and then um the time comes and you had those conversations but somebody else didn't. um So just important to have all of that documentation together for whoever may have to step in at any point. The kind of other things you want to have documented is not just what kind of care they want, what kind of care do you think you can provide, but life-saving measures, right? If they were to have a heart attack or a stroke or something and they were to be able to be resuscitated and survive, but be kept alive by machines, is that something they would want? If they could be kept, if they could live without machines, but not live as who they really are, or something like that. Is that something they want? In the work that I do, before I even had this conversation with my parents, or maybe around the same time, I was working on my own trust documentations, and I had these conversations with my son um about what I want. And he just turned 22. So I mean, we were having these conversations when he was 19, maybe 20 years old. But I also clearly know what he wants if something were to happen to him. He serves in the military, and so in many ways, depending on what's going on in the world at any given time, you know, his number could get called as well. So anyway, all of that to say, what kind of life-saving measures do they want or not want? Um, Power of attorney. If you have children over the age of 18, you should have a power of attorney in place. You and the other parent should both have power of attorney, both medical and financial, that would come into play if something were to ever happen to them. Again, you and the other parent may not be married, but they can name, you primary, the other parent secondary, or vice versa. But just in case something happened to them and you are no longer here, it would still pass on um, that control, if ever needed, to somebody that understands their wishes and would follow through with those. So making sure that any child over 18, you have power of attorney to be able to make those medical decisions, especially. Because if you're not there, the other thing is have it documented somewhere. Because if you're not there and the paramedics are called and they don't know not to resuscitate, they will. Right? That's what they do. That's what they're trained to do. So, I mean, you can't necessarily always control that in every situation, but um anyway. So that being said, I already talked a little bit about, are you wired to be a caretaker? And again, I'm going to say it is okay if you are not wired that way. It is not a requirement of life. Even if your parents want to be kept out of a home and they want to live with you, if that is beyond your scope of capability or desire, it is okay. It is not required of you to care for a loved one if you don't feel like you could provide the best care possible to them. Um, Again, you are going to beat yourself up about plenty of things along the way. I wanted to be a caretaker and had some conversations. It was really hard for my brother to let my parents move 1,200 miles away from Utah to Texas to live with me. Um, and yet I really had the desire. He and his wife still work outside the home. I think I've talked about this before. And they would do what they could, but I wanted to. And so it was just really mapping some things out and putting together a plan for them to come visit and us to go visit so that they felt like, um, mom and dad didn't just come here and in a sense disappear from their everyday life. So, having all those conversations with everybody else involved and making sure everybody's on the same page and talking through any disagreements, or you've got to, because the worst thing you can do when you lose a loved one, when a loved one requires caretaking, is create an environment where there's um butting of heads or arguing, fighting, whatever, just splintering of a family because things weren't documented. So super important. Um, if you aren't a caretaker, like I said a little bit earlier, research different options. Like my parents don't want to be in a facility. It really ties back to, when I was 10 years old, my mom's mom had a stroke and she was in a care facility, I think for about 10 years before she passed. And it was full care. She couldn't get up and walk around and feed herself and all those kind of things. And nursing homes, now mind you, she passed right around, I think right around the time I was 16-ish. So I mean, I'm 51, you guys. That was what, 35 years ago? So what was available from a nursing home perspective then versus now is very different. Now there are senior living centers where, you can buy, a condo apartment type deal. Um, or even, just rent one like an apartment in a senior living facility where they have all the activities and things like that. And this is kind of what my son and I've talked about. He's like, Mom, I love you, but I don't ever want you to live with me. And I'm like, okay, cool, because I don't want to. And it has nothing to do with our relationship. Um, it's multifaceted, and I want to be as free as I can for as long as I can too. So I think about those facilities where, hey, when I don't want to take care of a yard and all of that, I want to be in a senior community where maybe I can still have a sweet little dog or something like that. I'm not a cat person. I'll be honest, I love other people's cats. I have not had the best experience having cats myself. So I do love animals, but anyway, I digress. So, be somewhere that plans activities and field trips. Maybe I can't drive anymore. Maybe I just don't want to drive. Um, there are, groups in those facilities that travel all over the world. So still vacation and do all those things and have a community of people my age to hang out with. So for me, I look at that, but I want it to be one of those community that advances over time. So at the point that maybe I did need some kind of in-home support, even transitioning into full-time nursing in home, things like that, I want it to be able to transition through those phases as I might need them. And so do the research to find out what's out there, what kind of places around where your parents live or you live or whatever are available. What does that look like? What do they have available? Look at the reviews with social media today. You can always in your community say, it's a place down the street. I guarantee you, if you post in a neighborhood page or, a local mom's page or something like that, that you're considering or looking at some facilities and, um, you know, does anybody have an experience with this one or that one, that you're going to get some feedback, good and bad, probably, and why. Um, but that's part of what comes along with it, right? You're not going to have all the answers. And depending on the circumstance with your, my mom's mom was still verbal, but she spoke in her native language, which was Tongan. It's a South Pacific island. And so most of us couldn't understand her. My aunt, my mom, and my uncle could, and my grandfather was still alive too. So, um, but you could be in a situation where all you know is what the care facility tells you, right? That everything's going great or whatever. And maybe it's not. I mean, maybe it is, but maybe it's not. So do your research, check into that thing, look at reviews, ask opinions of people. Um, get on caretaker forums and say, what should I look for? They will tell you guys, what should I look for to be concerned about the care my loved one is getting in a care facility, things like that. And I'm going to continue to talk more about that and bring guests on that live in those different segments of these topics that can speak to that a little bit as well. So once you have all that, um, again, know where everything is. Put it all in one place. Everything about the kind of care they want in the future, that can be written into their trust. It can be an addendum to their trust, something that they sign, that you sign or whatever, attached to their living will, right? What their wishes are should be all included there. In addition to that, let's jump into the finance side. Know where everything is as far as their bank accounts, retirement accounts, life insurance, investment accounts, wills, and trusts. You guys, when you have those power of attorneys in place, make sure that as far as you know, every doctor that they see has a copy of, so they either get a HIPAA certificate that your loved one signs or give them a copy of the medical power of attorney. That will take care of it. Make sure if your parents live in a different state and then they come to live with you, that you get that updated. Make sure it transitions to the state, because every state has different regulations. So you want to make sure the documents you set up for them when they're still living on their own in one state are going to transfer over in a new state. Same with their trust. You can work with a trust attorney, um, to verify that. If you get them set up through an attorney, you can ask them. My parents were in Utah. Um, you can ask an attorney there, do these documents transfer over? You can go to attorney, like I could go to one here in Texas and make sure I have had my parents' stuff reviewed, that we shouldn't have any problems with anything. And my brother still lives in Utah too. So it kind of works out okay. But my parents' bank, they have a copy of the financial power of attorney that if something happens to my parents, then financial power of attorney transfers in this way to my brother and I so that we could walk in the doors on day one and not have to worry about anything. They have the document on file. So anything like that that you can provide where needed, huge benefit that you already have that with them and you don't have to go try and digging up documents and all that kind of stuff. Because the other thing is like, look, if something happened and you're out of state and you're just trying to get there, this is why it's good to have a backup person that lives locally to your parents so that they could get to a hospital and make decisions about the medical side of things. Like my brother and I are both on the medical power of attorney and the financial power of attorney. One of us is primary on each and secondary on the other. And so, but it gives both of us the ability, if the one is not available, even though they're primary, it can fall to the other one to make decisions. So, where are their bank accounts? Where are their retirement accounts? What kind of, do they just get Social Security? Do they get, annuity payments, a retirement payment, a pension payment? Where is all that documentation? Where are their life insurance policies, the copies of that? Who are the contacts for life insurance? What investment accounts do they have? If they, have a 401k that they're drawing from, other investment accounts that they may still do, investment properties, right? Whatever their portfolio looks like, what is everything they have? Do you have the documentation for all of it? Keep it with their will or trust. Keep it with those power of attorney documents. Keep it with those these are my wishes documents, all in one place, and make sure each of you has a copy of it. So I made a copy of everything when we put my parents' living will and trust in place, with my brother too. So he has access to them. I have access to them. And then there's certain documents that I will, um, carry around in a sense if we're traveling or something to make sure, that they're easily accessible. So make sure that they're all in one place and the people that need to know where they are know where they are. Um, just don't leave your partner or family struggling with the loss of you or the responsibility of taking care of you and not knowing where to get the information or figure out if there is any information, not knowing where to find the money or find out there isn't any money. Like, you guys, it's so imperative. So many people I talk to all the time, when I ask what their wishes are when it comes to talking about end of life items, they say, I just don't want to be a burden. The only way you can avoid being a burden is to do the work as soon as you know what needs to be done to put things in place. As far as desires, wishes, wills, trust, that kind of stuff, but also, um, from a financial perspective, saving so the money is available to cover what needs to be covered so that you can get the best care possible and your family members don't have to struggle financially to take care of you, have to lessen the level of care that you're getting because that's all that they can afford. It's just so important. And it's a part of, like I said earlier, the financial education that, a lot of people know about investing. A lot of people know about life insurance and maybe even, annuities and some things. They may not know all the details and how they work, but they've at least heard of them. They know that they're part of a financial plan or part of a retirement plan. But what about your life and death plan? When you're living later in life, um, end of life care, end of life services, it's so imperative. There's so much that can weigh you down when it comes to that. Don't add the finances and the decision about the level of care on your loved one's shoulders or on your own shoulders because you are afraid to have a hard conversation or push somebody you care about or you may care for to have a hard conversation. Um, you know, I've mentioned this before, the next 10 years is going to be one of the biggest wealth transfers in the history of the world. It's expected that $30 trillion will transfer hands, and the majority of that is going to go to women. I don't say that because I am a woman. I say it's because it's true, right? There is a higher population of women than men. And so a lot of women are going to be inheriting money. Um, know how to incorporate any inheritance into your own financial plan. Know your parents' wishes if they want a legacy to be left for generations to come, and make sure things are set up in a way that they can. For example, for me, I have a trust set up. There are certain things I want to go direct to my son in full upon my death, and there are some things I want to be left and controlled by the trust to pay out um, for grandkids, great grandkids, etc., over time. And so I want that money to live in there and to continue to grow and to pay out in increments that my legacy can live on for generations. So know know how to carry your loved ones or your own legacy forward. Um, it can make all of the difference, right? The decisions we make today can trickle down for generations, both good and bad. What do you want that to be like? I want to know that my grandkids, great grandkids, great great grandkids never have to worry about if they can afford to pay for college or afford to buy their first home if they choose not to go to college, or afford to start a business if that's what's most important to them. And I want them to have my support long after I'm gone in being able to do so. So I hope some of this information was beneficial to you. Like I said, I do want to bring some experts on here to really dig into different components of this, and what caretaking looks like and what costs of caretaking can be and things like that, just to help you better plan and prepare as we move forward, as well as my general financial education. That's always going to exist. I do work with anyone and everyone. I have a very, very strong pull towards the support of seniors or those who are responsible for seniors in their lives, to make sure they know what to do, how to do it, to the best of their ability. And so I am going to start touching on a lot of that. I am going to start doing some coaching to help people get their arms around that. So if that's something that you need help with, some guidance, some outlines, some budgeting, things like that, I'm certainly going to start some coaching offers that way. So feel free to reach out to me. I do answer some questions at no cost. And as a client on the financial services side, there's no cost when it comes to your actual finance or service products in working with me. But I do want to make sure I can help as many people as possible navigate what I and my family has been going through the last 2 years, especially the last year, as absolutely well as possible. So that's really my goal, is if I can make a difference for one of you out there, then that's confirmation for me that I'm doing the right work and I'm sharing the right information. So that being said, thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward to continuing to bring you amazing content each week that will stretch both your mind and your financial future. As always, my contact information is in the show notes, and you're free to reach out to me at any time. I hope to hear from you at some point, or to have you back again next week for our next episode. Have a great week, everyone.